Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be presenting our income-driven repayment workshop. We're going to jump right in because we have a lot to cover tonight. Who we are Student Debt Crisis Center. We are a national advocacy organization with nearly 2 million supporters nationwide, calling for fundamental reforms to student loan policies and an end to the student debt crisis. You can find us at our website, studentdebtcrisis.org, and you can also find us on social media at debtcrisis.org. All right, so we also want to say a huge thank you to our funders. This programming was provided by the Annie E. Casey Foundation, and we thank them for their support. However, the information and opinions presented in this workshop are those of SDCC alone and do not necessarily reflect those of the foundation. And we want to give some quick reminders here before we jump right into the presentation. We encourage you to ask your questions in the Q&A function. We are disabling the chat, so that is not available. But if you look at your toolbar, there is the Q&A section specifically. We will do our best to answer as many questions as possible. I do want to note that we are a bit short-staffed tonight. And so if you have any extremely lengthy questions or extremely specific questions, I ask that you please hold those. You can reach out to our team at our website, studentdebtcrisis.org, and we can try and point you in the right direction. But in this case, please hold on to those questions tonight. Any information shared on today's clinic pertains to the current guidelines and rules. The information is changing often. So this information is subject to change, and it's been updated as of today, April 30th, 2026. And a recording will be provided via email to anyone who registered for the webinar. That will be sent out in about 24 hours. All right, so in terms of what we're going to be covering today, we're going to go over some federal updates, including those of the SAVE plan. We're going to discuss the basics of IDR forgiveness. We're going to discuss repayment plans and how to calculate payments. We'll also be discussing upcoming repayment changes with new plans coming and plans being phased out. We'll discuss some example scenarios to make it more relatable, and there will be a lot more information. Again, this information is provided today, April 30th, 2026, and is subject to change. And we are not financial counselors or attorneys, so also keep that in mind. We're advocates and experts here to help. All right, so starting off with federal updates, we actually got some news today that the final rule was released. So a lot of the changes that we're talking about today is a result of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So these changes that will be implemented beginning July. Some of these changes will include new lending limits for students and parents, a new tiered standard plan for loan holders with post-July 1 loans. There's going to be a new income-driven repayment plan called RAP. We're going to get into that soon. I know a lot of folks have been hearing about RAP. There's going to be the phase out of 2 repayment plans, ICR and PACE specifically. We'll also dive into that and more. And another thing to keep in mind, and we see this across a lot of our different workshops, there continues to be a significant backlogs in application processing and loan discharges at the Department of Education. So if that's you, we completely understand that it is very frustrating. All right, so first we're going to jump into the SAVE plan before we get into some specifics because we know there's a lot of SAVE questions here. So we know that the SAVE plan is officially coming to an end. This is a result of recent court rulings that ended the plan. So with that in mind, the Department of Education has started notifying folks enrolled in SAVE that both the plan and the forbearance will end soon. Beginning July 1st, loan servicers are going to issue formal 90-day notices instructing borrowers to switch to a different repayment plan. You will have 90 days from the day that you receive your notice to apply for another repayment plan. It's important that you keep in mind the day that you receive your notice, because if if there's 2 folks in your household, one person might receive an email one day and another person on another day. So please make sure that you're checking your email and that you're aware of what's going on there. And borrowers who do not take action will automatically be placed on either the will be placed in the standard plan if you don't apply for something else. And we know that the standard plan tends to have higher monthly payments. So please keep in mind any communication that you're receiving about the SAVE plan. All right, so looking at the timeline here as well, right now, the Department of Education's Federal Student Aid Office, or FSA, has begun notifying SAVE borrowers that the plan will end. No action is required from anyone at this current point. We're seeing a lot of people think that you have to exit SAVE before July 1st, and that's just not true. Right now, at this time, we recommend that you consider exploring tools such as the loan simulator or the EdCap tool. We're going to be dropping this in the chat for you so that you can estimate what your monthly payments will be off of the SAVE plan and in another repayment plan. Beginning July 1st, your loan servicer, specifically whether that's Mohila, AidVantage, Nelnet, CRI, will begin emailing folks with that formal 90-day notice that they need to exit SAVE. You will have 90 days from the day that you received the notice. And again, if you don't take action, you will be placed into standard. And September 29th is 90 days from July 1. So if you receive the notice July 1, by September 29th, you'll have to take action. If you benefit from not making a payment right now, if it's helpful in not having to make a payment, you don't need to rush out of SAVE on July 1 when you get the notice. Again, you have 90 days. So if you want to wait closer till you're at the 60 or 70-day mark, that's absolutely fine. Just keep in mind that if you wait till you're closer to that 90-day mark, it's possible that the website may crash. And so we don't want there to be any ramifications of waiting until the very last day. All right, so we also wanted to provide a visual example here of the emails that are going out. So this is, again, the email from Federal Student Aid. It's not the final notice. The final notices will start going out in July, specifically on the 1st. All right, so leaving the SAVE plan, we get this question a lot. Should I stay in it? Should I leave? You may want to exit SAVE sooner if you want to receive PSLF credits. Right now in the state forbearance, you're not making progress towards public service loan forgiveness or IDR. If you also want to receive IDR credits, you may want to consider leaving SAVE sooner rather than later. And especially if you're close to PSLF or IDR forgiveness, you may want to consider exiting SAVE. If you are currently at about 119, let's say out of the 120 required, you may want to just get out of SAVE, make that final payment, and hopefully have your loans discharged within the next few months versus waiting until everyone is trying to exit at the same time and it just delaying your forgiveness a little bit more. You might want to consider sticking with SAVE for a bit longer if you don't mind not receiving those PSLF or IDR credits, and especially if you are benefiting from not having to make a payment right now and you want to wait until you receive your 90-day notice. Again, it's a personal decision. It's up to you which is the best way to go. All right, and just to give a quick example here of Brian, Brian is currently enrolled in the SAVE plan and his monthly payment was about $100 a month. He has a household size of 4. He's married with 2 kids. He has a $100,000 loan balance with a combined household income of $80,000. These are going to be his options once he exits SAVE. So Brian is going to have access to the new IDR plan, which is a monthly payment of $264.79. The pay plan, which is the same thing. The wrap plan, and again, the wrap plan becomes available July 1st of this year. His monthly payment will be $366. The ICR plan, which is a big jump to $797, and the standard plan, which would be an estimated $1,161. So there are a few options here available to Brian, and he can use the tools that we're going to drop in the chat of the EdCap tool and the loan simulator to figure out these monthly payments, as can you. All right, and some final tips here for SAVE folks before we jump into the rest of the programming. Please be careful with misinformation. We've seen servicers tell people that they need to consolidate to get out of SAVE. This is absolutely incorrect. Anyone who consolidates their loans right now is essentially because you're creating a new loan through consolidation, you are resetting your repayment history. So if you have IDR credits or if you have PSLF credits, you're bound to lose them in this consolidation process. So be very careful about that. So right now, we have a few tips here on what you can do. Again, find out which repayment plan options you qualify for using tools like the Loan Simulator and the EdCap tool. Make sure that your contact information is up to date on your servicer website, since they will be the one contacting you with formal notices, making sure that if you receive communications through paper communications, that your address is up to date. And if you receive email communications, that your email is up to date. All of that is really critical right now. And again, whether or not you switch out of save, whether it's now or closer to the deadline, is up to you. It's a personal decision. However, if you are close to those PSLF or IDR credit thresholds, you may want to consider switching to another IDR plan sooner rather than later. All right, with that, I'm going to kick it over to my colleague Ryan to cover the next few sections. Ryan? Ryan, just want to confirm you're there.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. The next topic will be where to find your student loan information. Okay, so here are some tips for SAVE folks. So be careful with misinformation. We have seen servicers tell people that they need to consolidate to get out of SAVE, and this is incorrect. So what you can do now is to find out which repayment plan options you qualify for, and you can use tools such as the Loan Simulator and EdCap tool to estimate monthly payments across repayment plans and make sure your contact information is up to date on your servicer website, and they can contact with you with formal notices. And whether or not you switch out of SAVE right now or closer to the deadline is up to you, and it's a personal decision. And if you're close to the PSLF or IDR credit thresholds, you may want to consider switching. So we're going to go to the next slide. There's a little bit more SAVE information. So here are some tips for your account on studentaid.gov. So you can type www.studentaid.gov directly into your browser. And this is because we don't want you to click and go into a fake website. So by typing this in, it will take you directly to the official website so you can check all the necessary information there. So please make sure your personal information, like your email address, phone number, and address, is up to date on the website. And if you have trouble logging in or resetting your password, you can call 1-800-433-3243. And you can also go to this website online if you have trouble logging in or need to reset your password. All right, so this is information on how to find your loan information. So the first step is to scroll down to the My Loan section on the website. And here you can find your loan balance and current repayment plan and all of the information that you need to see on your dashboard. So next we'll be going into the different student loan types. So as for the different loan types under the umbrella of student loans, there are federal loans and there are private loans. We will not be speaking about private loans today. Today we'll only be discussing federal loans. So under the umbrella of federal loans, starting on the right, we have the Federal Family Education Loan Program loans. So those were loans issued prior to 2010. So those include the subsidized Stafford, unsubsidized Stafford, FFELP Plus, FFELP Consolidation, and FFELP Parent Plus loans. So all of those can be consolidated since they're no longer issued. And then in the middle, you can see the Perkins loans. Those are not issued right now as well. So those can be consolidated if you wish. And then on the left is the part we'll be talking about next and most in depth. That's the direct loans. So those include the direct subsidized, direct unsubsidized, the direct graduate plus, which will not be issued starting on July 1st, 2026, the direct parent plus, and the direct consolidation. So next we'll be speaking about the current student loan repayment options. So, depending on your repayment goal, there can be different plans for you to use. So, if your goal is ultimately to pay off your loan and pay it off in full, enrolling in the standard plan or one of the fixed plans might be the best option for you. But do keep in mind there's no loan forgiveness, so you will have to pay off this balance in full. Whereas on the other side, if your ultimate goal is for loan forgiveness and have your loans forgiven in the end, enrolling in an income driven repayment plan, also known as an IDR plan, may be the best option for you. So, in that plan, you'll make payments over time until you qualify for loan forgiveness. Right, and here's a chart just showing the different repayment plans. So, under the standard plan, we have the fixed alternative plans on the left, which are the graduated repayment plan, the extended repayment plan, and the extended graduated repayment plan. And then here on the right, we have the income driven repayment plans, also known as the IDR plans, which I just previously mentioned. So, that includes the income contingent repayment plan, also known as ICR, the income based repayment plan, also known as IBR, both the old and the new version, pay as you earn plan, also known as pay. And then just a small note on that one: not everyone is eligible for pay. You have to demonstrate financial hardship to be eligible for pay. And then there's the SAVE plan on the bottom, also known as Saving on a Valuable Education Plan, which is currently being phased out. So no one could currently apply or enroll in SAVE. And then also just a side note, the standard plan is also called a level plan if you hear it referred to as that. Okay, so here's a chart with further information about the loans I previously mentioned. So this just lists the plan eligibility based on your loan type. So on the left, we have the chart about the Federal Family Education Loan Program loans. So for the standard plan, you are eligible to switch into this plan. For the fixed alternative plans, they're eligible as well. For the income contingent repayment plans, they're not eligible. For the income based repayment plans, they are eligible. And then for the pay as you earn plans, they are not eligible. And then this chart on the right shows the direct loan eligibility. So with the standard plan, it is eligible. You are eligible to go into the fixed alternative plans. The income contingent repayment plan is eligible, but with the Parent Plus loans, they must be consolidated to access the ICR, the income contingent repayment plan. For income based repayment, you are eligible, but the Parent Plus loans must be consolidated and enrolled in the ICR first, and then you can access the IBR. And then for pay, yes, it is eligible, but there's the partial financial hardship requirement, and not everyone qualifies, as I previously mentioned. Okay, so here's more information. On the left is more information about the standard plan. So this is fixed monthly payments based on your loan balance. So there's the 10-year standard, which is the unconsolidated loans, and the 10 to 30-year standard, which is consolidated loans. And there are more affordable options for borrowers who are struggling, such as IDR plans. If you think standard plan is not low enough of a payment for you, and do keep in mind there's no loan forgiveness, so you are paying off the balance in full. And on the right, there's more information about fixed alternative plans. So the extended plan is fixed payments for 25 years, and it's only for balances above $30,000. The graduated plan is payments increase every 2 years. Timeline depends on loan type and balance. The extended graduated plan is a combination of increased payments every 2 years over a 25-year timeline, and it's only for balances above $30,000. And then for this one as well, there's no loan forgiveness, so you are paying off the balance in full. Okay, so getting into the heart of it with all the details is the income driven repayment plans, also known as the IDR plans. So, what is IDR forgiveness? IDR forgiveness is available after a certain number of payments have been made while enrolled in an IDR plan. The repayment terms range from 20 to 25 years, and a new IDR plan called RAP, which stands for Repayment Assistance Plan, will have a 30-year repayment term, and that will start on July 1st, 2026. So, one monthly payment is equal to one IDR credit, and you cannot make multiple payments per month to receive multiple credits. You'll have a balance usually larger than what you owed at the end of your repayment term because the monthly payments typically do not cover the interest that accrues. So the remaining balance is forgiven. So based on that amount that you pay each month, if you make a larger payment, it may not be in your best interest to do so, because you most likely will end up with a balance at the end, and that will be forgiven. So it just may not make sense to do that if that's your situation. Okay, so this is about what happens when you reach the IDR threshold. So there is no application to fill out once you reach the required number of IDR credits for IDR forgiveness. And when the Department of Education is ready to discharge your loans, they'll let you know that you qualify for the IDR loan forgiveness. You'll also receive a notice giving you 30 days to opt out of loan forgiveness if you choose. So if you do want to have your loans forgiven, you don't have to do anything during the 30 days. Whereas if you don't want your loans forgiven, then you'll have to follow the steps in the notice to opt out of the loan forgiveness. So, for example, if you're concerned about the tax burden, that would be a reason to opt out. So, and also, we are currently aware of borrowers who are currently eligible for IDR forgiveness but have not been notified. So, keep in mind the Department of Education is slowly notifying folks and discharging their loans, and it could take anywhere from weeks to months to hear from them about this. Okay, so going into the benefit of income-driven repayment plans, the monthly payments are calculated as a percentage of your discretionary income, which is based on your income and your family size, not the amount that you have left on your loan. And monthly payments may be more affordable than the standard plan and could help prevent delinquency or default since the monthly payments are lower. And this can also help folks with lower incomes, those who are unemployed, or if you have decreased incomes. And if you have no income or a low income, payments can be as little as $0. But it is important to keep in mind on the new repayment assistance plan or RAP plan starting July 1st, 2026, the new minimum payment will be $10 a month. And more benefits of the IDR plans is that every 11 months, you will need to recertify your income and family size so that your monthly payments can be adjusted as needed for the next 12 months. This needs to be recertified every 12 months, but we recommend to do it every 11 months so you can make sure you're ahead of that and don't have any lapse in information that's required. And if your wages decrease or you become unemployed, you can recertify your lower income at any time to secure lower payments for the next 12 months. As well as just a side note, when you transfer from one IDR plan to another, your IDR credits and history also transfer over, and you don't have to start over in terms of progress. So if the forgiveness requires 200 credits and you currently have 100, it transfers from one plan to another. So you wouldn't have to hit 300, for example. And additionally, most periods of forbearance and deferments do not count towards IDR credits. As for IDR and taxes, and for tax filing, if you're married filing jointly, both incomes are taken into consideration. But if you're now separated or divorced, or you can't reasonably access your spouse's current income, the Department of Education won't factor in your spouse's income or loan debt when calculating your IDR payment. If you're married filing separately, spousal income is not considered. And then for IDR loan forgiveness, it's now being taxed as income, and IRS integration has resumed on IDR applications. So if you provide consent, the Department of Education can pull your income information from last year's tax filing for the online application. However, you still must manually recertify your income every 11 months. And then if you have more specific questions, you can consult with a tax professional. Okay, so next we're going to go into the difference between IDR and IBR. So IDR stands for income driven repayment and is an umbrella term. So as you can see on the right, it has the other plans beneath the IDR umbrella. So overall, it goes over all of those plans. So IBR, which is income based repayment, and then also income contingent repayment, pay as you earn and save, saving on a valuable education, are all types of IDR plans. So they're all within that umbrella. Okay, and then just to note, we will be discussing RAP, the repayment assistance plan, shortly. So if you have any questions, we'll be going over that information shortly. So as for IDR plans, to start with the pay as you earn plan, so that would be the payment would be 10% of your discretionary income, and the minimum amount of years you would be paying is 20 years, and you'd have to reach 240 credits, which would be equal to 240 qualifying payments. For the new income based repayment plan, that would also be 10% of your discretionary income, minimum of 20 years paying on it, and then 240 credits or 240 qualifying payments. income-based repayment plan, or IBR, that is 15% of your discretionary income. You're paying for a minimum of 25 years, and that requires 300 credits or a minimum of 300 qualifying payments to reach forgiveness. And then for income contingent repayment, or ICR, that one is 20% of your discretionary income, paying for a minimum of 25 years, and you have to reach 300 credits or 300 or same thing as 300 qualifying payments. And then for the repayment assistance plan, which is starting July 1st, 2026, also known as RAP, that one will be 1% to 10% of your adjusted gross income. That one you will be paying on for a minimum of 30 years, and you have to reach 360 credits or 360 qualifying payments, which those are equal to each other. But credit is one credit is one qualifying payment, so it'll be 360 qualifying payments. And then not everyone qualifies for pay, and you must display partial financial hardship. So just as a reminder about that. And then as for IDR plans phasing out, as you can see on the left, on July 1st, 2026, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, also known as HR 1, goes into effect. And by July 1st, 2028, pay and ICR will go away and folks will need to take action. So folks enrolled in pay and ICR can remain in these plans until they're phased out, which, as I mentioned, is July 1st, 2028. So one question we get sometimes is, why would someone want to stay in one of these plans if they are going away? If being in one of these plans means you have a lower monthly payment, then it would generally make sense, if you want to have the lowest payment, to stay in one of those plans until you are told that you have to leave the plan. So if borrowers enrolled in these plans do not switch plans before they're eliminated, then direct loans will be placed in the repayment assistance plan or RAP plan. And any loans that don't qualify for RAP will be placed in the IBR plan, which is the direct consolidation loan containing at least one Parent Plus loan, as well as federal family education loans. And this is about Parent Plus loans. So Parent Plus loans issued or consolidated on or after July 1st, 2026 will only have access to the new tiered standard plan, and there will be no IDR options available and no access to public service loan forgiveness, also known as PSLF. So that begins on July 1st, 2026. So that's a notable date. Right, and I'm going to go ahead and kick it back over to Sabrina.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. And thank you all for your questions and for your patience as we try and navigate all of them. All right. So let's talk about calculating your payment across different plans. There were a lot of questions about this here. So there are a few different ways to identify your monthly payments on the different plans. I know that Ryan dropped some of the links in the chat there for folks. So the first way is the loan simulator, which can be found at studentaid.gov. The second is that you can call your loan servicer. If the estimates are vastly different across the loan simulator and the EdCap tool, or something is just not making sense, you can always give them a call and see if you can find out a little bit more there. And you can also use the EdCap tool as well. And again, these numbers are not 100% accurate. They are estimates. All right, so we're going to give you a preview of the loan simulator. I saw a couple questions about that. Again, if you go to studentaid.gov, that top toolbar has loan repayment. Once you click on that, you'll see a loan simulator in the tools and calculator section. Once you click on that, you will then see this next slide. Our recommendation is that you select the first option that says, I want to find the best student loan repayment strategy. Our recommendation is also that you be logged in when using this so that it can pull from your information that's already there at studentaid.gov, including your loan information. So once you click on that, you'll see the next slide here, and you'll be prompted to select all that apply to you. So if you have a job or plan to get one, if you filed taxes in the last 2 years, if you're married, if you have children or dependents, all of those questions, select everything that applies, and then it's going to prompt you to then respond. So if you indicate that you filed taxes, it's going to ask your tax filing status. If you say that you're married and you have children, they're going to ask about dependents. They're going to ask about the salary information. So you'll input all of that. And then on the next slide, you'll see that it will have you confirm your loan information. So in this case, this person had these loans. Make sure that it all matches up to your loan total. If your spouse has loans and you indicated that, you can then input their information here as well. If you're working towards public service loan forgiveness, it will also ask you if you would like to see the specific options so that you can maintain eligibility for that program. Again, going through it, making sure that everything applies to you. And then the big question here is, what is your primary repayment goal? Our recommendation is that you select to have a low monthly payment so that the option that pops up is the one that is the lowest payment. So in this case, this person was told that their recommended repayment plan with the lowest payment is the ICR plan, and this person is working towards PSLF. So here it's telling the person that their monthly payment would be about $339. Now, I want to be clear about some of the other information that's provided here. When it says payment period, we see here up to 25 years. That is just telling you the payment period for the specific plan. If you've been in repayment for 20 years, but you now want to switch into ICR, you don't have to start working towards 25 years all over again. The 20 years that you've been in repayment will transfer over to this new plan that has a goal of making the 25 years worth of credits, meaning you would have 5 years remaining. So you're not starting over from scratch when you're changing plans. I saw that quite a few times in the Q&A. So definitely keep that in mind. And then you can click beneath that. It said view more plans, and then it will show you here on the left-hand side the other plans that you qualify for. So it says that this person qualifies for those fixed alternative plans, and it estimates what their monthly payments would be. So you can see all of that. And then beneath it, it will also tell you which plans that you are ineligible for. Um, if you go through and you're looking at all of the pages and it just doesn't make sense that you're ineligible for a plan, you can always give your loan servicer a call just to verify the information. Because if you just so happen to qualify for something and you want to apply for it, you should be able to go ahead and do so. All right, and then the EdCap tool as well. This can also provide payment estimates. However, the EdCap tool does not tell you which plans that you actually qualify for, and it also does not include the fixed alternative plan calculations. The one benefit of this plan is that it does include the wrap plan calculations, which the loan simulator does not. So you would input all that information and then you'd see this breakdown of the different plans, your estimated monthly payment, the forgiveness amounts, and the additional notes. Here you can see in this case the wrap plan and what that would entail. And then I also want to note again that the wrap plan and the new tiered standard plan are not available until July 1st of this year. And using the EdCap tool and the loan simulator is not equivalent to submitting an application. If you want to apply for a plan, you will actually have to go to studentaid.gov where you can go ahead and apply for the plan that you have in mind. And if you want to apply, again, studentaid.gov/IDR. What you'll need to apply includes your permanent and/or mailing address, your family size information. If you don't opt into that IRS integration portion, like Ryan was talking about earlier, you'll need to provide income documentation. So if you're manually uploading, you'd need a W-2 or a pay stub or an employer letter certifying your gross income, a bank account statement, an interest or dividend statement, just anything showing that income. And you also must know what plan you want to enroll in. The lowest monthly payment option that used to be on the IDR application has since been removed, so you will need to select a specific plan. And again, I said at the top of the hour, where processing is taking a while. The timeline can vary from a few days. We've seen using IRS integration in a few weeks to a few months and even upwards of that for folks using manual documentation. Applications that, again, opt into the IRS integration are being processed more quickly. You should also be placed into a processing forbearance once you submit your application. If you're not, you can call your servicer and demand to be placed into one. And also note that your processing forbearance can be very short if you're using the IRS integration and your application is processed quickly, or extensive if you're using the manual documentation and it's going to take months. And also, if in the past you've submitted an application and it's pending, it's taking a really long time because you submitted using the lowest monthly payment option or you applied for SAVE and your application is still pending, you will need to submit another IDR application. There's a good chance it's just going to get tossed out because those inputs for the application are no longer being considered. Okay, and then this question um, that we're seeing in the chat here. What does one do if they are unemployed? Um, if folks don't have income or you're unemployed and you're going through the IDR application, there should be an option that says that you don't have income. However, if you're not seeing that, you can go ahead and call your loan servicer and tell them the fact that you are currently not making any income, you're unemployed, whatever the case may be, or that your income has reduced. And they should be able to assist you in adjusting your monthly payment to $0 or reducing the monthly payment based on a decreased income. So thank you for that question. That's really important for folks. Also, another question that we're seeing here a lot is how can I find out how many IDR credits I currently have? That is, I think, the most asked question that we get on a workshop like this. So let's talk about the trick that is available to folks. Okay, so to use this trick, and I'm going to ask one of my colleagues to drop this in the chat for folks, you must be logged into studentaid.gov, specifically, not your service or website, only studentaid.gov to use this trick. I'm not sure if you'll be able to copy the link from the chat, but you would need to paste this link specifically into a new tab. If you're unable to paste it here, this is going to be sent out to you via email tomorrow, so you can also give this a try. You would need to paste this into a separate tab. And then on this new tab, it's going to look like code. It's going to look like word vomit. But that's exactly what it is that we're looking for. This is what you're going to see here. If it gives you the option to click pretty print, we recommend that you do so because then it will break it down into the image on the right-hand side, which is a little bit easier to digest. However, if you can't and you don't see that pretty print option, that's absolutely okay. Um, so I recommend folks look at, if we look at the right-hand side here, or actually let's go to the next slide. I think that one is probably a little better. So if we let's look at the red box here with ICR, I recommend looking at type. That type is going to be on each box that will indicate the different repayment plans. If you then look at qualifying payment count, a couple rows down, you'll see that will tell you how many qualifying payments or IDR credits you have specifically on that plan. If you go down a little bit further, you'll see forgiveness required payments. In this case, for ICR, this person, or for ICR specifically, you need 300 credits for forgiveness under this plan. And in this case, because that person has 54 qualifying payments, they need an additional 246 credits or payments made before they qualify for loan forgiveness. So that's ICR. If we look beneath it here, you will only be eligible for one version of IBR. In this case, the person is eligible for IBR 2014. You can see here that they have a qualifying payment count under that version versus the first option here. And the required forgiveness credits for IBR 2014 is 240. So on this plan specifically, the person only needs an additional 186 payment credits until they qualify for loan forgiveness. So again, if you take a look at all of this, there are specific requirements that change among the different plans. So you can use this trick, play around with it, take a look at it, and see what the numbers are for you. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to our team and we can try and help you untangle it if needed. All right, so now let's talk about the upcoming repayment changes, which I know a lot of folks are curious about. All right, so a lot is going to change, and most of it is beginning July 1st of this year. So we're going to talk about repayment plans for borrowers with only loans from before July 1st, 2026. So for anyone that only has loans issued before July 1st, 2026, these will be your options. You will continue to have access to the current version of the standard plan. You'll continue to have access to the fixed plans, and you will continue to have access to the existing IDR plans. The big difference here is the addition of the WRAP plan, which is coming on July 1st. The WRAP plan will be available to all borrowers, with the exception of Parent Plus loans and consolidation loans that contain Parent Plus loans. So overall, it's pretty similar to what it is now. We know that some plans like the ICR plan and pay plan are going to be phased out. However, the structure overall is pretty much the same. Now, if you go to the next slide here, there is a very stark difference between those folks that only have loans from before July 1st of this year and those who have any new loans issued on or after or consolidated on or after July 1st, 2026. Anyone who takes out a new loan or consolidates on or after July 1st will be subject to these two options. There will be a new tiered standard plan, which we'll discuss in a moment, as well as the WRAP plan, which we will also discuss. These are very big changes for folks. We completely understand that, and so we are concerned about what that means with the limited repayment plan options, but we are here to help you navigate all of this as it happens. So looking at the new tiered standard plan, it's going to be based on your loan balance. Your repayment term is based on the loan balance. So if you have less than $25,000 in loans, it'll be a repayment term of 10 years. Between 25 and 50,000 is 15 years. Between 50,000 and 100,000 is 20 years, and anything above 100,000 is 25 years. Unfortunately, the new standard plan does not qualify for public service loan forgiveness. So anyone who's taking on a new loan or consolidating their loans on or after July 1st will need to be enrolled in the WRAP plan in order to take advantage of public service loan forgiveness. Parent Plus loans that are issued or consolidated on or after July 1st will only have access to this repayment plan, this new tiered plan, with no income-driven repayment options and no access to public service loan forgiveness. And again, it's really important for you to note that if all of your loans are from before July 1st, but you take on or consolidate even one loan on or after that date, you will lose access to all income-driven repayment plans and only have access to these two. You won't be able to put some of your loans, the pre-July 1st loans, in the old repayment options and the new loans in these options. They will all be subject to the new options. All right, and looking at the WRAP plan, which we got quite a bit of questions on earlier, the WRAP plan again is slated to begin on July 1st of this year. The repayment term is longer than the other repayment plans, so it's going to be based on 30 years, which is equivalent to 360 IDR credits. Again, all borrowers, whether it's pre-July 1st or post-July 1st loans, qualify, with the exception of Parent Plus loans. A few things to note, and something that Ryan pointed out earlier, is that $0 payments will no longer exist. It's going to have a minimum of $10 payments, even if you are unemployed. The WRAP plan has some similarity to the SAVE plan in that it will waive any interest not covered by the borrower's monthly payment and will reduce the borrower's principal by up to $50 if the payment does not. And the calculation is different. It's a little less generous than SAVE and more expensive than the other IDR plans because it's going to be based on 1 to 10% of adjusted gross income instead of discretionary income. So if you look at that chart, if you're making less than $10,000, your monthly payment is going to be $10, where on other plans it would have been $0. If you're making $50,000 to $60,000, it's looking at 5% of your adjusted gross income, and your monthly payment would be anywhere from $208 to $250. And if you're making greater than $100,000, it would look at 10% of your adjusted gross income with a payment upwards of $833. So this is the WRAP plan that is coming July of this year. All right, so now we're going to go over some example scenarios here for you to see how all of these changes are sort of happening moving forward. So the first scenario here is Maya. Maya took out loans for grad school in 2021 and is now entering repayment. She has a household size of 4. She's married with 2 kids, has a loan amount of $100,000 with a combined income of 80,000. Her options are similar to that of Brian, who is available, who has the new IDR plan available to her with a monthly payment of 264. The pay plan, same thing, 264. The wrap plan will run her about $366 per month. The ICR plan is looking at $797 a month, and the standard plan being over $1,100 per month. And you can see under each plan here, again, there are different specifics. So IBR and pay looks at 20 years versus wrap at 30 years and ICR at 25 years. So all things to keep in mind. When we look at Adriana here, she took out student loans and entered into repayment in 2013. She has a smaller household size of 2. She's married with no kids. She has a loan amount of $60,000 with a combined income of $40,000. Her monthly payments are going to be $68 on the pay plan, $100 on the wrap plan. She's subject to the old IBR plan, which is $103. ICR is 314 and standard is 678. So you see here a case where the wrap plan tends to be more affordable than a few of the other IDR plans. It really does vary. The third scenario here is someone whose loans were issued after July 1st. So Alexis plans to take out student loans in the spring of 2027. He has a household size of 4. He's married with 2 kids. He has a loan amount of $90,000 with a combined income of $150,000. His options are going to be the limited ones of just a new tiered standard plan, who, based on his loan balance, is going to have a 20-year repayment term with a minimum monthly payment of $697. And the wrap plan, which in this case is a bit strange in the fact that it is a higher monthly payment on the wrap plan at $1,250. That's not always going to be the case. That's just a case here in this scenario. All right. So this other scenario, and I think it's really important, is about Parent Plus loans because Parent Plus loan holders are going to be the most impacted by these upcoming changes. So Liam here has consolidated Parent Plus loans that are enrolled in the income contingent repayment plan. He's working towards public service loan forgiveness and has 60 PSLF credits. These are his current repayment options. He's able to access the standard plan, the fixed alternative plans, the ICR plan, and the IBR plan. He has access to all of those right now because his Parent Plus loans are consolidated well before the July 1st deadline here. However, if things change, like on the next slide here, his options will also change. So Liam is planning to take out a Parent Plus loan for his son in the spring of 2027. If he takes out even one loan on or after July 1st, the new tiered standard plan will be his only repayment plan option. He will no longer be able to pursue PSLF because the only plan that he qualifies for, which is the new tiered standard plan, is not a PSLF qualifying plan. We know this is extremely, extremely frustrating because many folks have to take on Parent Plus loans for their kids, but are also in this dilemma because they're also working towards public service loan forgiveness. So we understand these are not easy decisions to make, but we want you to be aware of all of the upcoming changes and how they're going to impact you. All right, and to do a recap of all of these changes, again, borrowers with only loans issued before July 1st, 2026 will retain access to the current repayment system and gain access to the wrap plan. Parent Plus loans must be consolidated to retain access to IDR plans. The recommended consolidation deadline that we gave was April 1st, 2026, because of the current rule changes. If you have Parent Plus loans that are unconsolidated and you're weighing that option, you can email us and we can talk through what is currently available. But we do not recommend consolidating after this date because it increases your chances of missing the deadline of having your loans issued before July 1st. Now, borrowers with any new loans or loan consolidations on or after July 1st of this year will only have access to the new standard plan and the WRAP plan. And Parent Plus loans can be enrolled in the new standard plan but not WRAP, which means they will lose access to IDR plans and public service loan forgiveness. All right. We're getting to the final stretch here, folks. Thank you for being patient with us here, and where we'll discuss some additional forms of loan forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge. All right, so one of the most popular programs is the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, or PSLF. It is a bipartisan program that began on October 1st, 2007, that forgives the remaining loan balances of public service workers. So 120 payments must be made, which is equivalent to 10 years worth, and you must allow time for your application to be approved as well. The payments on public service loan forgiveness are cumulative, not consecutive. You can work across multiple employers. It doesn't have to be just one. And I got this question here in the Q&A earlier. Public service loan forgiveness is not a repayment plan. So if you look at the equation here at the bottom, we recommend combining an income-driven repayment plan like the, let's say, IBR plan, while working towards public service loan forgiveness so that you maximize the benefit here. And it's also important to note that public service loan forgiveness is tax-free at the federal level. And for most states, it's also tax-free at the state level, which I believe there's only about 5 states that actually tax at the state level. Now, what qualifies for public service loan forgiveness? There are specific qualifications, including loan types, repayment plans, and employers. So for loans, if you have direct loans, so whether they're subsidized, unsubsidized, Grad Plus, Parent Plus, or direct consolidation, all of those qualify. If you have those older loans, like Ryan talked about earlier, those FFELP or Perkins loans, those can be consolidated to qualify for public service loan forgiveness, but those alone as a standalone do not count. The repayment plans that count is only the 10-year version of the standard plan, meaning you have unconsolidated loans enrolled in the standard plan, as well as the income-driven repayment plan. So ICR, Pay, IBR, and WRAP, those will all qualify for public service loan forgiveness. And for employers, all levels of government, whether federal, state, tribal, local, they all count. 501c3 nonprofits also count, and other critical public service jobs like police officers, firefighters, all of those count. What does not count, and this is a question again that we also are asked often, are contractors. Even if you contract for the federal government, that unfortunately does not count. It has to be a W-2 employee. Any type of 1099 employment does not qualify. Some additional forms of loan forgiveness and discharges. One of the other well-known ones is total and permanent disability discharge. This provides full forgiveness on your federal student loans if you are totally and permanently disabled. Borrowers must provide documentation from either Veterans Affairs, the Social Security Administration, or a medical professional to have to sign off on your application and essentially verify for you and the Department of Education that you are in fact unable to work, and they can discharge your loans that way. A few other options are borrower defense to repayment, in which your school defrauded you, false certification, unpaid refund, teacher loan forgiveness, closed school discharge, death discharge, and Perkins loan forgiveness. I will say that your loans, if you pass away, do not get transferred over to your children or your family. However, there is a bit of a lengthy process to go through to make sure that the debt is in fact discharged, but it is worth it to go through that process at the end of the day. But just to provide some peace of mind, it does not get passed on to your family. All right, so what can folks do right now? Again, it's really important that you know who your student loan servicer is, especially if you're in SAVE and they're going to be reaching out to you come July. and that you have access to your student loan servicer's account on their website. It's important that you save any communications and documentation that you've received from your servicer. You can go on your servicer website. There's often the inbox, and they'll send you bills there. They'll send you communications. Make sure that you're saving and downloading all of that in case you need to revisit it at some point. And you can also print, download, screenshot, and save any information that details how many IDR and PSLF credits that you have. It's really important with everything that's going on at the Department of Education and all of the changes that we're seeing. We're seeing often changes even to studentaid.gov. So make sure you have that information on hand. Something else to keep in mind are debt relief scams. Scams typically involve offering a loan consolidation or debt forgiveness in exchange for a fee. Folks claiming to be the Department of Education with promises of loan forgiveness, also bait and switch urgent language of immediate loan forgiveness. I will say the Department of Education does not cold call, they do not text. So please, please, please be careful if folks are, if you're receiving a letter or folks are emailing you claiming to be them, make sure that it is 100% truly the Department of Education. And it's also important to note that if you refinance your student loans with a private lender like SoFi or Earnest, you will lose access to all federal student loan benefits and programs like these income-driven repayment plans, like public service loan forgiveness, and there's often fewer borrower protections when it comes to private loans than there are for those with federal student loans. If you have issues or complaints, you can also submit them with your representatives' offices. They often have a dedicated person in office, a constituent services team to assist you with the federal agency. You can use that. I believe we have a casework tool that we can drop here in the chat for folks to also use if need be. You can also reach out to your state attorneys general offices. If your state has a local or state student loan ombuds person, your servicer website will have chat and messaging functions. You can also phone or email them. And the Department of Education has a help center if you're able to get into contact with folks there as well. All right, before I wrap things up here, I know there's a few questions here in the chat and the Q&A, and so I just want to make sure that we can address them. I think there's some questions about old IDR versus new IDR that I want to go over and make sure that folks understand. So there's old IDR and new IDR. You can only qualify for one version of it. So old IBR is essentially for loans that were issued prior to July 2014. If your loans are issued after July 2014, then you would qualify for new IBR. However, it's also a little bit wonky because the Biden administration viewed loans that were consolidated after July 2014 as new loans. So it's very possible that if you consolidated at some point after July 2014, that you do qualify for the new version of IBR. You can always give your servicer a call and see if they can verify which version of the plan you actually qualify for. I'm just taking another look here and see if there's any other questions that I can quickly answer out loud. Okay, what did... Okay, we covered IBR. How do you know if you're sub IBR? Does RAP waive any interest not covered by the monthly payment for all loan types, regardless of when they were taken out? Yes, the RAP interest provisions is for any loans that qualify for the plan. So all direct loans, with the exception of Parent Plus loans, qualify for RAP. So in that case, any of those loans will have the waived interest if it's not covered by the monthly payment for all loan types that qualify for it. All right. So if you want to continue getting these updates from us, you can sign up for our mailing list. You can visit us at student.crisis.org and sign up there. You can also ask us questions through our website. And you can follow us on social media at debtcrisis.org on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. We typically will share breaking news and up-to-date information on our social media first. So that is always a good place to go to. And again, I really appreciate everyone's patience with the Q&A today. If you have any questions that we did not get to or answer today, you can shoot us an email at info@studentdebtcrisis.org, and we will do our best to get back to you within the next week. Again, we just want to thank you all so much for joining us this evening. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you to my team for answering these questions, for presenting, for being here. We will send an email with the recording and links 24 hours from now, so keep an eye out for that. But with that, thank you for joining us. I hope everyone has a great night, and we will see you next time. Take care, y'all.